You know, people talk about hitting rock bottom like it's a momentary thing, a crash, a bang. But for me, rock bottom was an event. It was a location. It was a 12 by 10-foot uninsulated tool shed in the backyard of a house in suburban Seattle. From the age of 16 to 18, that shed was my entire world. We weren't destitute. My mother, Sarah, drove a late model SUV. We had cable TV, a stock fridge, and a manicured lawn. But inside the main house, there wasn't enough room for me anymore. Not after Richard moved in. My mother married Richard when I was 15. He came as a package deal with his son, Julian. Julian was my age, born just 3 months after me. And apparently, blending a family is a lot like physics. Two objects cannot occupy the same space at the same time. One of us had to be displaced. And since Richard was a new patriarch and Julian was a fragile, sensitive artist who needed a north-facing window for his painting, I was the one ejected. It started subtly. Just for the summer, they said. Ideally until we can renovate the attic, they promised. But the summer turned into autumn. The leaves fell, the rains came, and the attic never got touched. That shed, I can still smell it. It smelled of gasoline potting soil and damp wood. In the summer, it was a convection oven. I would lie on my cot, a military surplus thing that creaked if I breathed too hard, sweating through my sheets, listening to the hum of the air conditioning unit, cooling the main house just 20 feet away. But winter? Winter was a teacher. Winter taught me exactly what I was worth. I remember waking up in January. I could see my breath in the air. The condensation from my own breathing had frozen on the inside of the single-pane window. I had to wear a beanie and gloves to sleep. To do my homework, I ran an extension cord from the patio to power a single desk lamp and a space heater that shorted out if I ran it for more than an hour. I had to keep my clothes in sealed plastic tubs because the dampness would make them moldy within days. If I needed to use the bathroom in the middle of the night, I had to put on boots, trek across the frozen lawn, unlock the back door of the main house, and tiptoe through the kitchen like a burglar. And where was Julian? Julian was in my room. My old room. The room with the built-in bookshelves I had helped my dad build before he passed away. Julian slept in a queen-size bed. He had my closet. He had the heat. I remember standing in the yard one evening, looking through the window. The curtains were open. I saw them sitting at the dining table. My mom, Richard, and Julian. They were laughing. Richard was pouring wine. Julian was gesturing with a fork, telling a story. It looked like a stock photo of the perfect family. I wasn't just excluded, I was erased. They gaslit me constantly. If I complained about the cold, Richard would clap a heavy hand on my shoulder and talk about grit. He'd say, "You're a man now, Elias. This is good for you. It builds fortitude." Julian is delicate. He's going through a lot with the transition. You need to be the strong one. My mother was worse. She wouldn't look me in the eye. She'd hand me a plate of leftovers at the back door, wrapped in foil like I was a stray dog, and say, "We're just so proud of how independent you're becoming." Independent. That's a nice word for unwanted. I stopped bringing friends over. How do you explain that you live in a shed next to the lawnmower? I stopped talking at dinner. On the rare occasions I was invited inside, I became a ghost. I focused entirely on my grades and my part-time job at a logistics warehouse. I saved every penny. I studied by flashlight. I hardened. When I graduated high school, I expected something, maybe an apology, maybe a welcome back inside. Instead, on the morning of my 18th birthday, 2 weeks after graduation, Richard met me in the driveway. He didn't have a gift. He had a cardboard box. He smiled, that tight, corporate smile of his. "Well, Elias," he said, "you made it. You're an adult. And in this family, 18 means you fly the nest." My mom stood on the porch, arms crossed, looking at the hydrangeas. She wouldn't even look at me. "You're kicking me out?" I asked. "We're launching you," Richard corrected. "You've always been a bit of a guest here since the marriage. Anyway, it's time for Julian to have the run of the house. He's starting art school locally, and he needs a space for a studio. A studio. My room wasn't enough. He needed the shed, too. I packed my life into that cardboard box and a duffel bag. It took 20 minutes. 7 years of childhood, erased in 20 minutes. As I walked down the driveway, Julian leaned out of my old bedroom window. He was holding a mug of coffee. He waved. A lazy, dismissive little wave. "Good luck out there, Eli," he called out. "Don't freeze." I didn't wave back. I looked at the house. I memorized every brick. I memorized the look of relief on my mother's face. I memorized the arrogance in Richard's posture. I whispered 3 words to myself. Not, "I hate you." Not, "Why me?" I whispered, "Wait and see." That was 7 years ago. For the first 2 years, I struggled. I lived in a studio apartment the size of a closet, eating ramen, and working double shifts at the logistics center. But I had something they didn't have. I had the hunger. The kind of hunger you only get when you've been freezing cold for 3 years straight. I put myself through university at night. I didn't study art or philosophy. I studied systems engineering and forensic accounting. I learned how money moves. I learned how structures are built, both physical and digital. I learned how fragile the foundations of a comfortable life really are. I landed a job at a boutique risk management firm. Basically, companies hire us to find their weak spots before their enemies do. I became exceptional at finding weak spots. By 25, I was making 3 times what Richard ever made as a mid-level contractor. I bought a condo in the city, penthouse level, floor-to-ceiling glass, climate control that I could adjust to the exact degree from my phone. I never let myself be cold, and I watched. I never blocked them on social media. I never responded to their sporadic, half-hearted, happy birthday texts, but I watched. I saw Julian drop out of art school after 1 semester because the professors didn't get his vision. I saw him bum around Europe on Richard's dime for a year, finding himself. I saw him come back and land a cushy marketing job at a tech startup, a job he was woefully unqualified for, likely secured through Richard's golf buddies. I saw Richard's contracting business expand. I saw him buying a boat. I saw my mother hosting charity galas, playing the role of the benevolent matriarch. They look happy. They look secure. But I knew better. I knew that Richard had a habit of cutting corners. I knew my mother had a spending problem. And I knew Julian was a fraud. 6 months ago, I decided it was time. I didn't want to just egg their house or slash tires. That's petty. That's childish. I wanted to dismantle them. I wanted to turn their lives into the shed. I started pulling loose threads. It began with the whispers. 3 weeks ago, the frantic messages started rolling in. First from Richard. Asterisk, "Elias, are you in the city? We need to talk." Urgent. Then my mother. Asterisk, "Eli, honey, please call home. It's an emergency." Then Julian. Asterisk, "Dude, what the hell are you doing? Stop this." I sat on my Italian leather sofa, sipping espresso, and just watched the notifications stack up like Tetris blocks. I didn't reply to a single one. They knew. Somehow, they figured out that the hurricane hitting their lives had my name on it. You see, I hadn't just been working. I had been networking. Richard's contracting license? It turns out the city inspector for his district is a man who loves thorough documentation. I simply provided an anonymous, comprehensive dossier detailing 3 years of code violations on Richard's recent projects. Substandard wiring, non-compliant plumbing, illegal dumping of construction waste. I included dates, photos, and site addresses. The result? Immediate suspension of his license pending a full audit. His active job sites were shut down. His clients sued for breach of contract. His cash flow didn't just stop, it reversed. Then there was Julian. Julian loved to brag on LinkedIn about his lead designer role. He posted his portfolio everywhere. It was impressive work. It was also stolen. He had been lifting designs from obscure freelance artists in Eastern Europe and passing them off as his own. I didn't tell his boss. That would be too simple. I contacted the original artists. I helped them draft DMCA takedown notices and cease and desist letters sent directly to the startup's legal department. Then, I casually mentioned to a contact I have in the tech journalism world that this hot new startup was harboring a serial plagiarist. The article ran on a Tuesday. By Wednesday morning, Julian was fired. By Wednesday afternoon, he was blacklisted from every agency in the city. And finally, the house, the sanctuary they denied me. They didn't own it outright. Richard had refinanced 3 times to pay for the boat, the cars, and Julian's lifestyle. They were swimming in debt, leveraged to the hilt. When Richard's income evaporated, they missed a payment. Then another. I happen to know the portfolio manager at the private equity firm that holds their mortgage. We play squash on Thursdays. I didn't do anything illegal. I just mentioned, over a post-game drink, that I heard Richard's assets were frozen due to a massive legal battle regarding code violations. Banks get nervous when they hear legal battle and frozen assets. They accelerated the foreclosure process. The notice was served a week ago. Silence is a powerful weapon, but eventually, the targets get desperate enough to break it. I was leaving my office building on a rainy Tuesday evening. The lobby is all marble and glass, very echoing. And there, sitting on the designer bench near security, was Richard. He looked 10 years older. His hair was thinning, his skin gray. He was wearing a suit that looked like he'd slept in it. He stood up when he saw me. Elias. I didn't stop walking. Richard, you're trespassing. He jogged to catch up, his heavy boots squeaking on the polished floor. We need to talk. Now. I have nothing to say to you. You're ruining us, he hissed, grabbing my arm. I stopped. I looked at his hand on my sleeve, the cashmere sleeve of a coat that cost more than the car I drove in college. I looked at him until he let go. I'm not doing anything, Richard. I'm just a bystander. Don't give me that, he spat. The inspector? The complaints? The article about Julian? I know it was you. You're the only one who hates us enough to be this thorough. Hate implies emotion, I said calmly. I don't hate you. I'm just correcting an imbalance. You taught me about consequences, remember? You said sleeping in the freezing cold would teach me about the real world. That was a difficult situation, he shouted. People in the lobby were starting to stare. We did the best we could. Julian needed stability. And I needed a parent, I said. But we don't always get what we need, do we? He switched tactics. His shoulders slumped. Your mother, she's a wreck. Elias, she can't sleep. She's crying all day. They're taking the house. We have 30 days to vacate. We have nowhere to go. No credit. No cash. The shed is still standing, isn't it? I asked. He froze. It's a sturdy structure, I continued. 12 by 10. If you pile enough blankets, you won't freeze. You might have to deal with the mold, though, and the rats. But it builds character, right? It builds resilience. He stared at me with pure horror. You're a monster. I'm a product. I corrected. I'm exactly what you manufactured. Now, get out of my building before I call security and have you arrested for harassment. That wouldn't look good for your license appeal. He left. He walked out into the rain, and for the first time in 7 years, I felt warm. I thought Richard would be the worst of it, but my mother, she knows exactly where the knives go. She didn't come to the office. She found my email, the old one I used for college applications. I know you're angry. I know we failed you. I look back at those years, and I don't know why I let it happen. I was weak. I was trying to keep the marriage together. Richard was so adamant, and Julian was so troubled. I sacrificed you to save them, and it is the greatest regret of my life. Asterisk. But Eli, we are destitute. Julian is talking about hurting himself. Richard is drinking again. I am selling my jewelry to buy groceries. We are family. Blood is supposed to mean something. Please, call off the dogs. Drop the complaints. Help us fix this. I am begging you as your mother. Asterisk. I read it twice. It was beautifully written. A masterclass in manipulation. I replied with one line. Asterisk. You stopped being my mother the day you handed me a trash bag and watched me walk away. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. It was her number. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. I listened to it later. sipping a glass of wine. She was sobbing. Eli, please. We're gonna be on the street. Julian can't handle this. He's not strong like you. He's not strong like you. Even in her apology, she insulted me. She confirmed it again. I was a draft horse. He was a show pony. I was built to suffer. He was built to be pampered. She was right about one thing, though. I am strong. And strong people don't rescue the people who broke their legs just to see if they could walk. Julian was the last to try. He didn't plead. He didn't apologize. He attacked. He found me at a coffee shop I frequent on Sunday mornings. I was reading a book, enjoying the sunlight streaming through the window, the kind of sunlight I never got in the shed. He slammed his hands on my table. He looked manic. His eyes were bloodshot. He hadn't shaved, and he smelled like stale beer. Fix it, he snarled. I marked my page and looked up. Hello, Julian. You're blocking my light. You destroyed my career, he shouted. You contacted the blogs. You got me blacklisted. You plagiarized work, Julian. You stole from struggling artists. I just made sure the truth was public. If your talent was real, you'd have nothing to worry about. I was just getting started. I needed a leg up. Everyone does it. I didn't, I said. I worked in a warehouse. I studied in the dark. I didn't steal anyone's life. You stole my room. You stole my comfort. And then you tried to steal someone else's art. Do you see a pattern? It was a room, he screamed. It was just a room. Why are you so obsessed with it? I stood up then. I'm taller than him now. Broader. I leaned in close. It wasn't a room, Julian. It was a statement. It was you and your father telling me every single day for 3 years that I didn't matter, that I was garbage. Well, guess what? I didn't decompose. I recycled myself into something you can't touch. I'll sue you, he threatened, his voice shaking. With what money? I asked. And for what? Telling the truth? Go ahead. Discovery will be fun. I have 7 years of receipts. Do you? He looked around the coffee shop. People were filming on their phones. He realized he was losing the audience. He realized he had no power here. We're going to lose the house, he whispered. We have to be out by Friday. I know, I said. I saw the listing. It's going up for auction. I'm thinking of buying it. His jaw dropped. What? It's a nice property. Good bones. I'm thinking of knocking down the main house. It has bad energy. But the garden shed? I might keep that. Renovate it. Put in a nice heating system. Maybe use it for storage. Julian turned red, then white. He looked like he was going to throw up. He turned and ran out of the shop. Friday came. I drove by the house. From a distance, I sat in my car, looking down the street. I saw the moving truck, not a professional van, just a rented U-Haul. I saw Richard carrying boxes, his back hunched. I saw my mother cry on the front lawn, holding a vase of flowers like it was a baby. I saw Julian sitting on the curb, head in his hands. They looked small. They looked defeated. And you know what I felt? I checked myself for guilt. I looked for that pang of sympathy. I waited to feel like the villain, but it didn't come. All I felt was balance. For 3 years, I watched them live in warmth while I froze. For 7 years, they forgot I existed while I built an empire. Now, the scales were even. I watched them drive away. They were heading to a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. I knew this because I had made sure it was the only place that would take a reservation with their credit rating. I started my car. The heated seat kicked in. The climate control was set to a perfect 72 degrees. People asked me, was it worth it? Holding on to that anger for a decade? They say anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. But they're wrong. Anger, if you refine it, if you distill it, isn't poison. It's fuel. It's a nuclear reactor. It drove me to become excellent. It drove me to become untouchable. I drove back to my penthouse. I stood on the balcony, overlooking the city lights. I poured a glass of vintage scotch. My phone buzzed. Another email from my mother. Another threat from Richard. Another plea from Julian. I selected all. I hit delete. I took a sip of my drink. The forecast called for a freezing night, a record low. I went inside and closed the sliding glass door. The seal was perfect. The silence was absolute. I was finally warm.